Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's catch-up to go over what's been happening in the market and what we can look out for in the coming few days and weeks. We'll get into some charts. So, what do you reckon we start off with, mate?
Well, do the obvious one, get it over and done with. You know I can't comment on that, so we've all got holdings on that. So let's do that one first.
It's been a bit of a hot topic of late, not so much necessarily in our server, but definitely in the Sweat server. And I was keen to have a look, and I did start charting it, and then I thought I'll delete everything I've done, and then that way I can start fresh and sort of show people how I go about it and what I'm looking at. We'll go out to a weekly time frame to begin with. So we'll just start from the start, pretty much. And this is a futures chart, so it may not have everything in it, but it's got enough for us to sort of look at. So on a clear downtrend, looking at the weekly chart, and I actually haven't done this before when I've been charting Sweat, but good practice to do it now. So below on the weekly chart, whilst we're below the 50% level, on a very long time frame, distant analysis, things are looking bearish, whilst we're under the 50% level. So we can go all the way up here, we can bounce around, do whatever we like, but as long as we remain under this level, things on a long term remain bearish. But it's not all doom and gloom, because at some point we are going to have to break this level. We've been under it since March. Well, let's say March. Always a good go-to, sort of give us a base or a floor, if you will. So at the moment, this would be considered bullish on a lower time frame. Bullish whilst we remain above the 50% level. So that would suggest we can come down to about 657, which was actually, we did a fair bit of hovering around that level before we started this most recent run up. So to come back down and test that area that we were sort of going sideways in would be good, nice and healthy. We don't want to see closes. We can wick below, but we don't want to start seeing closes below the 50% level. If we do, then we can sort of start expecting a bit of a change of trend. Some other levels that we can look at for a bounce would be these tops here, around 771. When we broke out, we did come back down and test it and then took off again. So that's already been proven as support. We could come down and test it again.
I've seen it push 58.5 in the last few days, dilated.
58.5 on the market cap.
Yeah, because I know you had concerns that the market cap was too high last week's session.
Yeah, so what my concern is there, and it's sort of irreversible. To a degree, it's irreversible. You can burn, I suppose, but when you're seeing the market cap increasing more than what the price is, that means that there's more tokens being minted or being unlocked. Then that's what it's showing, that there's quite a substantial amount of tokens being unlocked, more or less, which would suggest that doesn't mean that they're all going to be sold, but it increases the likelihood of there being an increase in sell pressure at some point. Because you've got more people holding tokens. They're not all going to be hodlers, and hodlers don't create buying pressure. So that's why I sort of thought it's not really great to see an increase in market cap when the price isn't going up or going up as quickly.
Yeah, I mean that would equate to, trading volume shooting up in the last 24 hours. I mean, it's a spike, I think, at about 2.1 mil. 48 hours ago, but then came down significantly, back down to about 1.1, I think it was this morning when I did the roundup.
Yeah, you could see the spikes in that volume there as we broke out this is on the daily time frame. We broke out with volume, which is good. Came back down and tested and bounced. The overarching uptrend is over. Well, look, when we're at 5 cents, we went from it's 5 cents, 0.0052, went from 0.0052 all the way up to 0077 in one swift move, and then the sellers came in, and we had a pullback. And maybe we'll do some back testing. We'll see what level it pulled back to. Sorry, it's starting to look a little bit messy now. So that actually, we're looking at these ones here. So that pulled back to the 618. But it closed back. I'll make it easier. Let's delete that one so we can see what we're looking at. So it pulled back to the 618, closed above the 50, and actually had a big wick to the top side as well. It did get a close below the 50%, but then it started picking back up again. And then that's where we're at now. So at 50% level, it shows that it is key. It doesn't have to be it, but it is a strong key level. So that's a big run. Now we're up and we're coming back down. I just wanted to touch on this 7.7 level. So over here, when we were in the big downtrend, we had a big wick down and it came in as support. And then we broke through it, came back up, tested it, resistance, boom, straight down. Now we're sort of hitting it in reverse, and that's the neckline of the inverse head and shoulders. So I think it would be, like, we came back and tested it on the daily, but it's going to come back down and test it again. I'd really like to see it hold. You can draw like horizontal lines around here, around the 7.1 level, because that was previously resistance as well. So that could be another bounce area. There's lots of key resistance or key levels to be watching here. This 628, that was another key level that I had marked. That was resistance as well before we came down to here. And yeah, it's looking likely that we're going to have a pullback. I don't know if I want to go into the chart or not. No, we'll just leave it at that, I think, for now. Where can we go though? That's the question. The next level at the moment, we tapped out at 8.9, which sort of lines up with these two tops here. I think we can get to this top here at 1 cent. That's what I'm sort of targeting over the next week. I think we'll probably hit it around the US launch. And what happens after the US launch is where I'm really intrigued and waiting to see whether it gets faded back down, or whether it goes against the trend of what's been happening all year with alts and continues its run up. If it does look to continue its run up, there isn't a lot of structure above the 1 cent level. Like, this was virtually straight down. Like, it's a little bit of a zigzag, but it's more or less straight down. It hasn't gone down and then back up and then down, maybe put in a higher high because it came into some resistance. It was just pretty much straight down. Yeah, if it can break that 1 cent barrier, it could really start to get a move on, which would be exciting to see, I think, for a lot of people.
No comment.
Hopefully that happens after you get into the market with your big bag side.
I can't
No
comment.
comment again on this.
Goes down as insider
Uh,
trading information, mate. I'm
it's all good,
slow
mate.
to ask me about it. I can't give the date or anything else around like that. You know that.
Look,
Could be seen as price manipulation.
oh, 100%. But I think we also have to be realistic here, and look at what has happened with XRP and the SEC. Stellar is another one that's come back into its range. Solana got up to $34, and now it's struggling to hold 19. There's a lot of tokens that have had decent pumps, and some on some arguably fairly fairly good news. Like, it's not just opium. It's like, I think the set case is everyone saw it coming, but it was a great win for crypto.
I mean,
But
Rune's been latest as well, which went up to $2 and has just crashed again.
yeah, that's right. And it's just it's just shows that the alt market up only, or a bull market without the money printers being on. They need fresh new liquidity coming into the space from printers to sustain the alt market, because at the end of the day, the alt market is the riskiest asset on earth. So they're actually not going to steal. They're not going to steal liquidity from Bitcoin or from the stock market or from real estate or from gold or whatever it might be. But they need the printers on for them to have a run. And so I think until either Bitcoin really gets going and the dominance gets right up there, and it gets to a point of where it's like, okay, it's actually getting ultra bullish now, so it needs to have the dominance needs to have a decent pullback. Either that happens or liquidity enters the market, which I think that's what's going to be the case coming out of China. That's when we will really start to see alts moving and holding their moves.
When do you think the liquidity will start coming out of China? Because I mean, we don't hear about that too much where we're based. Up in Europe, I mean, you would have a much better understanding around kind of, the Southeast Asian market. Can you give a bit of insight into kind of this at the moment?
Well, I don't really know a great deal. I just seen that there's a lot of news about China and the real estate crash. There's a massive infrastructure company that they build apartments, like massive skyscraper apartments around the globe, and they administration or nearly something like that.
Okay.
Where they're starting to they're failing to make their bond payments.
Yikes.
And do you recall Evergrande going bankrupt?
Rings a bell. Yeah, rings a bell.
So the company that is failing to make their bond payments at the moment are about 10 times bigger than Evergrande.
Wow.
And they'll have 10 times the effect on the global market, because Evergrande was more or less that if they really went belly up, it was going to be sort of isolated to China and Asia, whereas this other company, whoever, I can't remember their name, they're building in Singapore, in the States, in London, in Australia. They're everywhere. So it would have an impact around the globe, really. But that is what is being told in the news, that's it, it's over. They're gonna go under. The world's gonna end. And the Chinese stock market took a big hit due to that. But they're not going to go under. Oh, they're going to get bailed out. When all this was unfolding, the president of China was actually in South Africa getting some no-name award, just a token gesture type of award, rather than being in China where the world's collapsing. So that sort of tells me that he's not too worried about what's happening over there.
It sounds like a
they're,
bit like the Swiss credit situation. I mean, they received a bailout, 53 billion, didn't they? You know, Swiss government stepped
that's
in.
right. And in China, their GDP is going backwards. They're in a deflationary environment at the moment. So the government is going to step in at, I don't know when, no one knows when, but they're going to step in at some point and start injecting cash into the system to pep it up, to bring up their GDP, to get people spending money, to start building things and trying to pick up their economy. Similar to what happened when COVID first and the got turned on around the world.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
So that's where my theory is coming from, that this bull run is going to be led by the Asian markets, particularly China. And it's why I'm personally paying particular interest into altcoins that are sort of born out of the China region.
I was just about to say, you know, can you give us a few examples of Chinese-based altcoins? So, you know, we can possibly go back to this conversation, like, I don't know, like 2-3 months, and just kind of, you know, do maybe analysis of kind of A, your logic, but B, also then evidence-based outcome of possibly what's happened in that time. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. So to sort of support my theory, if you're looking at a lot of the Korean coins over the past sort of 3-4 months, they've been getting pumped to the moon, like going up astronomically, and they're getting pumped by Koreans. The Korean whales are pumping their own coins. Apt were Aptos, when that came out, it's a Korean coin, got pumped to the shit house. Got up to, I think it was $21, and now it's trading down at, I haven't seen it in a little while, but I'm guessing it's around $8, $7 at the moment. So that sort of is where my mindset is going, where the people of the nation where the coin is from they're more likely to pump their own coins before they start pumping other coins. So I've just gone into a pinned message in the alt charts part of the server, and it was actually iDark Striker posted it up, which has a list of Hong Kong tokens, or tokens that have an affiliation with companies or VCs that are in China and Hong Kong. Now, I don't necessarily think that, I'm not keen on all of these coins, but there is certainly a couple in there that I don't mind. Actually, I was just having a look today. The one at the bottom, FLM, that's had a pump of about 16% today. PHB, that's been pumping on and off for the past sort of 4 months. Phil had a pump a couple of months ago. Coco's has been pumping. CFX has been pumping. Sand hasn't done much. Mask hasn't done much. RSS3 was actually brought to my attention by Xenon. I really like that project, but its biggest downfall for me is that they don't have any tokenomics listed in their white paper. Project itself seems amazing, but they don't have any tokenomics, and that's a massive red flag. So unfortunately, I don't think I'll be investing in that one, unless perhaps they come out with some tokenomics. The ones that I'm sort of keen on are VET and Loopring Coin, down the bottom. They've been flying under the radar. They haven't had a pump. So I sort of feel like, are these other coins pumping to divert your attention from what's really going to fly? And I quite like them. They've been around. Vet was around for the entire last cycle, which is a bit of a concern because I don't think that altcoins make a new all-time high cycle to cycle. But you're still going to get gains nonetheless. Loopring Coin is a real sleeper for me. That's one that I'm really keen on. Yeah. What's your thoughts on does some of these coins look familiar to you at all, Si?
No, because most of them aren't listed on Stormgate, to be honest with you. So I mean, this is why I was interested to kind of, hear your logic behind this, and what your level of thinking is. It makes common sense.
I think there's around 7, perhaps 8 alts that I'm looking to pick up. When I'm well and ready, there's there's 1.5, I suppose. What one that I'm happy with, another that the tokens are actually locked up, and as soon as they're available to me, I'm going to be dumping them because I'm not happy with the project. But yeah, there's only about 8 tokens that I'm looking to accumulate when I'm ready to. But I don't just look at these lists and say, yeah, Asian coins, let's jump in with everything I've got, and I'm just gonna, it's a Chinese coin, so I'm gonna get on it. I've looked into it, I've researched it, I've tried to find out what they're about, and that's it. I couldn't tell you what it is, how how many tokens they've got, because I'm purely just trading the chart. And the other thing I will say, when it comes to altcoins for myself, it only makes up around 15 to 20% of my entire crypto portfolio, and that 15 to 20% is spread amongst 8 coins. So it only really is a small portion, a small risk from my perspective. I like to be risk adverse when it comes to those long term holds.
There's a quick question from Muji and also Negged about Litecoin. If you kind of can go into that quickly and have a look at the chart.
Yep. Negged, I'll be very happy at 1 cent as well, mate. Muji, thanks for the question. I'll have a look at ApeCoin first. And I apologise, I'm not ignoring anyone here. It's on my phone. I don't get the comment alerts or anything like that when I'm sharing my screen. Apes looking bad, Muji. Don't have good news for you here, mate. I actually think I made a similar comment to you a little while ago. I thought it was going to get down to around $1. And it looks like we're still on that path. Like, we just made a new lower low yesterday. Look, it might come up at some point, but it's sort of had a big run. Yeah, let me get rid of some of these fibs. It got up to nearly $30 at one point. Wow, that's a big fall from grace. Look, at some point it is going to level out, but the problem is that when you don't have a structure to sort of fall onto, you just don't know how low it goes again. A few weeks later, back under $3. Then we had a nice little pump up to $6. We're never going to see $2.70 again, guys. And now it's just slowly bleeding off. It's going to come leveling out, but it's just like, where at what point does it stop? I actually don't know what the market cap for Ape is. So it's still sitting. Well, that doesn't make sense. Market cap's $500 million. Total supply max. Circulating supply, right? So it's still got a lot of supply to come out. Fully diluted 1.3. To be honest with you, Muji, it really depends on how big of a capitulation we have on total 3. Well, I'll jump into total 3 and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I posted this up a little while ago. If total 3 comes down, has a capitulation event, breaks this low, and breaks this low, it's likely to come down to it. And it's scary to think, but it's likely to come down to around this $240 billion mark, which is almost a 30% drop. It is a 30% drop. So if we go back to APE, so if we do a 30% drop from $1.30, that's going to put it around 90 cents, something like that, 95 cents. That's if it stays with total 3. But because it doesn't have any structure or floor to sort of say, right, it's going to have support here, it's going to have support here, or whatever, it's probably or that these coins that don't have a floor and they're in discovery are likely to drop harder because you're going to have other coins that do have structure below. They're not going to fall as hard. So then these sorts of coins pick up the slack. So this could quite easily get down to like 70 cents, 75 cents in that vicinity. But I guess it really depends on what are you looking at, a short-term, mid-term investment, long-term investment? If you're looking at long-term investment and you're sort of thinking, oh, I think we can get back up to $15, let's say. If you're getting in at $1.30 or you're getting in at 70 cents, it's not really that big of a difference. So you could look to DCA and use a bit of a martingale system where the lower it goes, you sort of DCA a little bit more. Or you just wait for a capitulation event if that's what you believe is going to happen, and then you can start to DCA and sort of see what happens. Personally, I don't really have time for APE. It's not really something that I follow. I'm not really into NFTs or anything like that. So it's probably one that I personally will steer clear from, but it has shown in the past that it can really move. I remember these moves. They were wild. Everyone was trying to short and everyone's getting wrecked. I think I might have got wrecked as well, likely. So it can really get going, especially if NFTs start picking up again, which isn't hard, especially when you're looking at the apes. They can bring about demand really quickly, by and it can be so simple. It can be something as simple as this basketball game that's coming up in the NBA. If you've got this NFT, you're going to get box seats or whatever it could be. They can make it up and create a demand for it so quickly.
I will say Bored Ape Yacht Club at the moment is hemorrhaging off kind of the floor price. They were about 75,000. I think entry level model is down as low as 15. I can remember them selling at 350k a pop at one point.
Yeah.
The gods as well. I mean, the NFT market is hemorrhaging money left, right, and centre at the moment. Even most new projects aren't selling out where they would sell out in minutes. Pre-sale would wipe out 75% of all new kind of NFTs coming out in the market.
I'm actually not a big fan of. I'm not a fan of much. You get to learn that about me. I'm a bit of a pessimist, but that's okay. It's okay to be a pessimist. And the reason why I'm a little bit of a pessimist with Litecoin is it's got to do with the halving. Like there's a lot of people pumping up the halving, pumping it up, and Ben Cowan actually put up a great tweet, and I think I might have put it up in. No, how do I get out of this? I might have put it up in here. No, I can't find it.
It was on your
Never
Twitter
mind.
page, if I remember correctly.
What it pretty much showed is that whenever the Litecoin halving comes around, there's a massive pump up in the weeks leading up to it, and then the week of it starts fading, and then the next period I'm not sure about Litecoin. Do they have a 4-year halving similar to Bitcoin? I'm assuming. It takes nearly 3 years of down before it starts picking back up again. It's sort of crazy, and there's a massive following for it. On a different note, though, it has made higher high to higher high from bull run to bull run, which is bullish. That is good. That's actually a bit of a unicorn. You don't see too many alts whatsoever that make highs to high from cycle to cycle. This is one of the few. But where it is at the moment, it actually doesn't have a lot of downside to it. Looking at the chart, like I'd sort of say maybe around that $50 mark would be a pretty good area to sort of start looking to get some entries. We'll just see where it is on the chart.
62.935.
Yeah, so it sort of had a big drop here in middle of August. Came down, almost touched the 786, and sprung back up a little bit. It's got a bit of sideways there, which sort of suggests it's going to come back down to this $57 level. But it's good because it does have a bit of structure behind it. Like you can see this little pocket here, around $54. You might expect a little bit of a bounce there. Then you've also got these wicks. So there'll be liquidity at the bottom of these wicks, and there's also strong demand within these wicks as well. You're pretty safe down to about $40. That's when it starts to get a little bit hairy, and then you start having to go back and looking at other cycles. And once you get to around $40, then you've got all this sort of structure to fall back on. And it then only starts to get dicey once you start getting to around the $30 to $25 mark. I can't see it going much lower than that. If I was getting into Litecoin, that's sort of the areas I'd be looking to start DCAing. But the chart does look good. I'm quite impressed with this, and I actually do quite like how it's not a big difference, like 375 to 375 to about 410. So it's not a massive jump between cycles, but this is like a unicorn. You just don't see it with alts making higher highs cycle to cycle. Do you know much about Litecoin? Sorry?
No, not really. I mean, it's not something I've really looked into, to be honest with you. I mean, I've never traded on it either, so I'm not too familiar with the patterns, to be honest with you. I know it has its fans. I've seen it pump from $60 to $75 pretty sharpish a number of times, but again, it's not something that I've done kind of any due diligence on. I've not looked into it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm much the same. I haven't done any research on it myself. I have traded it on futures, and I actually have bought a little bit of spot of it before, but that was I had to send someone I know some money, and he's actually in the Netherlands, and so using Litecoin was the most cheapest and efficient way to do that. But besides that, I haven't really dabbled in it at all. But having a look at the chart.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to have like a really hardcore following. And those those who favour it, are quite bullish on it, and it's all they really talk about. But apart from that, in the wider crypto community, even on Twitter, I don't really hear it kind of spoken about. So I'm wondering if it's kind of, big institutions who've got a lot of it that just pump the price when they need to, or, just a couple of or whales who have, massive holdings of it. It seems to be, like you said, a bit of a strange one, in terms of the cycles and everything else.
$25. I'm just doing a little bit of just speculation, if you will. Hey, going off the trend line, that would sort of suggest it's pretty much 4 years between the highs. So 4 years from the last high to the potential next high would sort of put it at $460. So I guess if you're getting in like the $50 area ish, if it gets down there, of course, you're sort of looking at just under a 10x, which that's probably where it starts to lose me a little bit. I think you can get better or safer gains elsewhere. Like Bitcoin, for instance, you probably get quite easily a 5 to 6x with a lot less risk. Or there's some other altcoins where you could perhaps maybe get a bigger return for similar risk. But there is also the factor of, and I've said it, I've been harping on about it the last 10 minutes, but this is amazing. It's only a small gain, but it's amazing that it's put in a high cycle to cycle. So that's definitely a plus side. I'm going to have to actually maybe have a bit more of a look into Litecoin, I think, away from tonight. Anyway, getting a little bit sidetracked now.
I was just about to say, should we dive into BTC and have a look just about kind of what's happened over the last week? Because, it does seem to be kind of heading back down to that magic 24.3, which you talked about, Jesus Christ, 7 months ago almost now, 6 months ago, when we posted up in February. So, yeah, what are your thoughts around that? And kind of, because that was a bold prediction back then, and I know that's been your magic kind of golden pocket for quite a while. So seeing it come down to kind of where it is at the moment, just go through your thoughts and kind of your analysis around this at the moment and what you're seeing.
Yeah, so I was pretty back. Where is the loads there? So back around here, back in April, I believe it was. I was calling for about 24. I think it was a little bit less. It was about 23.7 to 24K back then because the golden pocket was a bit lower.
Yeah.
I was fairly adamant on it. And then when we got this low in at 24.8, I was actually really disappointed. I was quite shattered because I thought, fuck, it's so close, but it hasn't got there, and it actually didn't really marry up with too much. And I thought it just doesn't feel right. And I sort of thought after we had the jump up and we got to, let me go to the weekly. We sprung up, we got up to 31.5, and I thought to myself, I just don't feel like it's done. And the reason being is we hadn't cleared these highs yet. And I thought until we sort of break that, I feel this feels like we're still in the same range. Whilst we had a massive green candle, we still weren't too far away from there. Whereas when we broke out of this range, it broke straight up, came down, tested these range highs, and held it. And so that's formed its new range. And this just did not feel like a new range to me. So that's what I thought. Unless we break above 32K, we can't ignore that we're going to come back down here. We just can't. A lot of people are going to think that this is the low, but we can still go lower. I still did try to take longs at 27.2 and at 28k, which I got stopped on, which is fine. But I've always had in the back of my mind, and I've been saying it out loud, that just down here, we're not finished. There's unfinished business, and look at where we are now. So I was talking last night with probably a daytime for some of you guys, about this 50% level, the 23,642. There's going to be a lot of people looking at the 618 at 24.2 and thinking that that's going to be the low. So that's what's got me looking just a little bit lower. The rest of the golden pocket and the 50% level, and I think that that's the area it's going to be. There is starting to, I've been seeing on Twitter, there is some people are starting to catch on to it, which also makes me nervous, because when you start seeing people talking about numbers and where price is going to go, it typically never ever happens.
Well, the Dutch trader, I know he's pretty proficient. He's been talking about that type of figure as well. Yeah, there's been a few, let's say, of the bigger traders and influencers starting to speculate, which, yeah, it's not particularly great at the moment.
Yeah, I don't like it. Like, I've had the idea for quite some time, and now that other people are catching on, I'm like, don't talk about it. If you think about it, don't talk about it. So it sort of got me thinking, all right, well, what could be a bit of a plan B? And so I've gone out to the monthly chart, and I don't normally trade like this, but sometimes you have to think outside the box. It's also can work against you. Sometimes you can also be overthinking as well. But when you're looking at charts and you've had a few whiskeys, sometimes these things happen. So I was sort of looking at these monthly opens and closes over here, 23.3, and the crux of it is that this 50% level is pivotal in maintaining a close above the level. We don't want to see consolidation below it. We can have wicks through it, but we don't want to see consolidation below the level. So it's almost a matter of, all right, well, how far are we? Can we wick through it and still sort of get back up? We've seen some massive wicks. Like, we've seen wicks that go down to 2k, and it'll retrace it in no time. So 21k, it certainly isn't off the cards. I think it's less likely, though. I sort of think maybe we're sort of looking around the 23.3 level potentially. I've got limit orders dancing around this 50% level. It starts, I think, at around 23,650, and I think the last order is around 23,500. I'd probably get stopped if it got to 23.3 and would have to enter trades manually. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But you also have to have invalidation. You can't have trades sitting there without stop losses. So that's sort of where I see Bitcoin making a low. There is ultimate bearish scenarios. I'll go to the weekly because it should bring up. Where's my? Oh, I've got it turned off. No, it's not turned off. I can't see it. No, it's not there. Okay. Anyway, it pretty much is the 400 weekly SMA, and when it was working, I know why it's not working. I need to go into this chart. Sorry about that. So the 400 week SMA currently sits around 16.3. It's super bearish. It breaks down the March low, which I can't see that March low getting broken. I can't even really see a wick going below it unless something really bad happens, a black swan type stuff. But anyway, we need to look at all scenarios. The reason why I'm talking about the 400-week SMA is because if I change this to the 300 and we look at the last bear cycle that we had, we came down and touched it. Now, if I change that to the 200, so that's a bear of 2019. We come back down here. Now we're starting to get pretty far. 2015, we actually broke through it. We touched it twice, broke through it. So the 200 got touched in 2015. 300 got in 2020. That's the COVID low, actually. So we go 200, 300, well, we're up to the 400. So the 400 has us here. And that's my ultimate bear scenario. As long as these lows aren't broken, it could arguably be a higher low and bullish to a certain degree, but it's not good news, I don't think. It's just going to sort of suggest it's going to be sideways for longer. There's major turmoil in the world. Stock markets bleeding, and it might seem like there's turmoil in the world, but stock markets certainly not bleeding. They're making all-time highs pretty much around the world or close to it, within 10% in most countries. So that's where I sort of think, I think this year we're going to skip out on 16.5K, and it's likely going to be somewhere in this vicinity. Or we come down and touch the bottom of the channel. That could be an option too. How do you sort of see Bitcoin playing out, Si?
I still think I still think we haven't reached the bottom of the channel yet. I mean, back in February, I did say about 25,000. I might even go a bit lower than you at 2250. But it all depends on kind of, as I said, the Fed's rate are probably not going to increase. In terms of kind of inflation across Europe is coming down massively. There will be an influx of money coming in pretty soon. Not only in the UK, I mean, inflation's gone down to 5.5%. Yes, house prices are going down, etc. But we are coming out of global recession at the moment. We touched upon this earlier in the world kind of economic position at the moment. If the USA can add a stimulus package along to China, I think things will turn around pretty quickly. We have seen the worst of the recession, which was the beginning of this year. In terms of kind of, as I said, kind of the world pickup, it can't last forever. I mean, like you said, bear market's been the longest that we've seen for a while. This recession has been pretty hard biting. Cost of living, I know you don't believe in it, but I certainly do, is starting to come down. That is the case for the US and it is the case for the UK. This will mean there will be more liquidity for most people in the pocket. So I think there might be a sharper downturn, over the next month or two. But in terms of kind of long term, I think going towards the end of the year, we will see kind of BTC hopefully back up around about 30, 32. Just on, as I said, those kind of that outlook at the moment. Whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, I know you've said about 37.50. I know I said at the beginning of the year about 40, maybe as high as 35. But again, that's just my personal opinion. And it's nothing neither of us said. or didn't say sorry at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just pull you up on something there, Si, about cost of living. I do believe in it, and I live it myself. I just don't think that the cost of living, I don't believe that the cost of living is affecting stock markets at the moment. The people that are affected by the cost of living aren't the people that control the markets or move the markets. That's what my stance is on it. And it's sort of seen by a lot of the major companies making massive profits in their revenue. They do their revenue statements to see how much money we made for the last quarter or 6 months or whatever it might be. Like, there's record profits being made in multiple different sectors. So their costs aren't, their profits are going up.
Which is true. Which do make up a small percentage of the market. Do you know what I mean? When that initial small time investment starting to kick in, then you see kind of other people kind of put money back in. And it is that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy within kind of the economic cycle to a certain extent. Without, yes, the top 99% do have kind of the majority of the money, the top 90%, whichever which way you look. The average person is able to invest in Bitcoin, in stock or whatever, that is a true sign that we're coming out of recession. So that's a model that I look at. Is, your next door neighbor, Joe Bloggs, able to put, a couple of $100 into, Bitcoin? Are they able to put, a couple of $100 into Apple shares or whatever? When you start hearing or seeing that real time, then recession, we're generally coming out of recession. More money comes into kind of, high risk assets, as we both know, whether it's tech stock, whether it's kind of, as I said, kind of crypto. That's a true sign of kind of, cost of living coming down, et cetera. And that's why I always use that model.
I sort of see that as that's almost that. I think that we'll get to that point nearing the end of the bull run. The foot will get taken off the average person, and then they'll be able to spend a little bit more, invest like you might be suggesting, and that gives an exit opportunity for the institutions to sell the top. And the poor bastard next door is unfortunately going to be thinking the stock market's going to keep going up. It's been going up for years. I can finally get into it, and they're going to be buying the top, and they're going to get screwed. And it's a bit similar to, I'm not going to name names of anyone, but I saw a comment that somebody said that for them, a bull market is when the previous all-time high is broken. Unfortunately, from a technical standpoint, that's incorrect. A bull market starts when the lower low has been formed. So for Bitcoin, the bear bull market has started in November last year. It might not be confirmed for months after, but when you're looking at history, the bear market starts at the all-time high, and it concludes at the low of the cycle, and the bull market's the other side of it. And that the best way to get into a bull market is to try and identify that, okay, the low is in. So what can you do to identify that? Well, you start looking for key levels in the downturn to start being broken and flipped into support. And for Bitcoin specifically, that was the 25K level. So whilst we made a lower low back in November, it was this spike here that said, right, guys, hold your hats. We're actually in a bull market. We might come back down low below this point, which is fine, but we've broken the resistance of this accumulation period. And so that confirms that is, well, it confirms, at least to me and quite a number of other people that I sort of follow, that is the lower low, and that's the floor of the bear market, or the end of the bear market, and signals that is now the start of the bull market going up. If you wait until 70K is broken, you've missed all of this. All of this. We might only get to 99K. So you're going to buy at 70K and then sell at 99K or 100K or something and make 50% gains on your investment, where you could have been getting in at the start of the bull market down here. And this is sort of where the institutions play the game with the stock market. I'll go to the SPX. I've got some stuff on the charts here. I'll say right now, we're not going to see 3,500 again, 3,800 again, until we've made an all-time high. Probably won't see these levels, 35, 3,800, until around 2026, 2027, unless there's COVID comes back or something really drastic. But we are in a bull market. And there's no doubt in my mind that we're in a bull market here. Like 4,800 is the all-time high. It's, yeah. If we're going to wait until we're past here to start saying that we're in a bull market, you're almost setting yourself up for failure, because you just don't know where's the top going to be. At least if you're starting to buy down here, you know, all right, we're going to break this top eventually. So if I DCA, and then maybe I'll stop once we start getting around here, and I'm going to pick a spot to sell up here. You're going to make more gains. But if you're waiting to start getting into the market up here, it's called the winner's curse, because you're getting in too late. I understand the theory or the reasoning why you might think, or not you per se, but people may think that, okay, we need to break this level, and then once we've broken this level, that's it, it's bull market. Because we see a bull market, as this, but pretty much up only. That's a bull market, but that's not a bull market. Bull market builds up to it, and then you get the bull run. Two different things. It's running uphill. Bull market, bull run. Same thing. So bull market, we're going to get our run. Not yet though. It'll be next year. It'll probably start, and then we'll get the bull run going straight up. And that's when you'll get some people that are like, oh shit, I need to buy. They might take a data on ramp or something, and before they know it, price was 50K yesterday. Tomorrow it's 60K. The day after it's 70K. Oh, I'll wait for a pullback. Pullback doesn't come. Goes up to 80K, 90K. Oh, I'm just going to jump into the market. Then they might get a pullback. A bit like over here. I might start buying now, and then they get the pullback, and they're like, "Oh shit, it's going back down. It's going to go to zero." And that's what we'll see on Twitter at this point. When you get a pullback for a couple of weeks, something bad might have happened. We're going to come back down to 12K. People start selling. Generally, the people that bought here start selling down here. Then it takes off again, and they're like, "Oh shit, I don't have my Bitcoin anymore," and they'll start buying again. And it's just a complete psychological game the whole way through. That's enough about me rambling. Got a little bit off touch there as well.
No worries, man. I mean, no, I always love your methodology, and I think understanding the psychology behind this is equally as important as understanding kind of like how to read the markets, you know. And it's really interesting to kind of as I said, listen to your insight and listen to your methodology, listen to your thinking, because that is half the battle with the markets. Do you know what I mean? Yes, due diligence, but also having kind of the methodology and the psychology behind it as well. So that kind of leads us into kind of the next thing I was going to talk about, which is going to be kind of our session next week. We may or may not have an announcement, for what may be happening in about 4 or 6 weeks. So when are we going to do our session next week, my friend?
I'm fairly flexible. It'll probably be similar time to what we did today. I'm back in the desert again next week. I'll get to go home on Friday night and change my undies and repack my bag and take off again on Monday morning. So, probably be similar to next week, probably Tuesday or Wednesday.
All right, Muji or Neg, does that work for you guys? If you can just drop a message into kind of the chat, that'd be awesome. And if you've got any questions for next week, please just let us know. Or any alts you want us to go through, anything else like that. Okay, cool. Great seeing you both, guys. And as I said, hopefully next week we may have an announcement or two going forward. Always a pleasure to see everybody, guys. Take care, folks.
Yeah, thanks for coming along, Muji. Next, appreciate you guys